Cool. Well, thanks a lot. It's really good to talk to everybody. And just real briefly, so I lead a productivity group within the larger Salesforce team, and we're focused around helping developers get their work done, all the kind of tools and things associated with it. Don't read that. I got to put that up there. We're publicly traded. One, I want to say thanks to everybody who's helped start this foundation, for taking the time to participate in this summit, and for those of you that are writing or contributing to the software for this foundation and the other open source software that so many of us use. It's really awesome, and we all really appreciate everything you're truly doing here. So really what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about kind of the perspectives we have with CI/CD, the kind of systems that we have, and kind of why that motivates us to participate and try to help in any way we can here at Salesforce. And to kind of help maybe a little bit with that motivation, I thought it might be a little bit useful just to use one of our, this is not about a product, but a little bit about what Salesforce is about and some of the scale it operates at. Just kind of looking at the kind of the things that happen billions of times a day when people are using Salesforce to get their work done. It's truly an epically large kind of scale system that is very diverse across users, workflows, customer calls, interactions. It's north of 1 trillion actual transactions a year. So there's just a tremendous amount of complexity that goes on as we're delivering the services that our customers want. And there's a lot of underlying tech that we then integrate with. And part of these are someplace over here, there's a platform. We actually, Force.com is a big platform that people build on top of us. So, way before I joined the company, I didn't know all the stuff that we did. It's that kind of complexity which motivates the work that our developer team does. So maybe just a couple of possibly interesting facts about our transformation journey. As one of the large corporations, we happen to have, we've grown a lot of systems internally. We've also created a lot of systems through acquisitions. So got north of about 20 CI/CD systems. We're in the process of bringing those more teams onto our larger systems, but that's a journey. They've got their own high-level priorities, and they're trying to make progress against that. Somewhere north of about 1,000 independent systems that we kind of count and things that we're operating or reasoning about. Somewhere north of 1 million tests in our integrated test suite. And somewhere north of about 1 billion tests we execute a month. So as we're working through the CI systems, the fleets of machines that are kind of working through that are doing all of this to try to help our developers get rapid feedback and accelerate the understanding and learning that they're trying to do to be able to make things happen. And we're very big users of Jenkins. Thanks to everybody who's done all the work there. It's one of our largest kind of integration systems. And all the plugins and everything around that is very motivating and is very helpful. One of the things that we notice when we think about the CI/CD space is, one, how fragmented it is, and that fragmentation means there's a ton of integration that has to happen. And if I look at the teams that are working on in our organization, a lot of the work that we do is that integration. And at a company at our scale, we can do that. But when you think about smaller scale organizations, that integration is a real burden. And one of the things I'm hoping that we can do as part of this foundation is try to find ways to make that easier, more cost-effective, faster, to be able to do that so people can make use of some of these wonderful tools, plugins, and different technologies that we have. So maybe I can spend a few minutes and motivate some of the integrations we have, because you're like, okay, I've got a CI/CD pipeline. What am I integrating in? Well, you might be integrating in some more sophisticated security scanning that understands the provenance of the code. Where did it come from? Do I know it didn't come from someplace else? Do I know it's our code? Security scanning is another one that, like, are there known vulnerabilities in this? Are there techniques that the developer has used that meet a pattern which we wouldn't want to have happen in production code? And of course, there's metrics and there's analysis and different items, which we're all trying to do work and analysis around the source code as it's evolving and changing. So these are all things that over the years we've integrated in because the teams themselves are on their own mission and trying to understand how they can move forward and go faster. And that's kind of the integration in custom code. There's a non-trivial amount of that in our world. So we feel like we're that connective tissue between dozens of these other systems, including some of the custom auto build type systems that we've had before. So systems that predated some of the Jenkins world. So some of these are some of our main systems. Contributing to Selenium, and then one of the things that we're focusing on is, given that suite of tests, how do we prioritize, how do we optimize our test runs against any one change into a system? Because the last thing you'd want to do is run kind of some version of the entire suite against that. So how do you then choose in a kind of machine learning or some kind of pattern recognition way which subsystem the person's working on? How do you motivate that so you can get faster feedback? Not only cost, but just feedback is a real big deal. So we thought about some of the kind of shared goals that we have within our organization. And one of the things that we really care about is having a very secure, we call it the software supply chain, a software system that allows us to quickly, reliably, and repeatably build and manage our artifacts, the creation of them, and the deployment onto our systems. Security is a huge value in any organization. It's a very big value for us. So we really want to make sure that we've got, as far to the possible, a secure and robust system. Something that works across the entire suite of application architectures. So not all of our things are fully factored, Heroku 12-factored apps, obviously. We have things that range from microservices through to larger scale subsystems to some things you'd call monolith type applications. And all of those application teams are on their own journey. And we need to support the different kinds of applications they each have running. And we care about being very substrate independent. For us, a substrate being one of our first-party data centers, one of our cloud provider, infrastructure providers that we use. So we want to make sure that our suite of facilities are running effectively in an abstracted way so we can make best use of those resources. So as we think about kind of larger scale kind of ambitions for our CI/CD systems, these are the kinds of things we think about as ways to make progress on that this year. So kind of places to work together to make improvements. We've got very much of a shift left mentality. By shift left, it's like, how do we take more and more of the possibility of understanding a problem or an insight and move that further and further left into the development cycle towards the planning or towards when code is being written. So code analysis, code coverage, things that even understand code complexity. We're starting to make sure we have people understanding the tools so that if these highly complex code is getting written, we're at least flagging it as something that's interesting and being very noteworthy. Using, as I said earlier, the kind of machine learning to do test optimization is something that we think is a place where we're bearing a lot of fruit right now. And upgrading all of our CI/CD pipelines to leverage the open source projects we have here, whether it's Jenkins, Spinnaker, or Tecton, and I'm very glad that we're contributing into a Tecton already. Happy to be also starting to figure out how we can contribute into Spinnaker, which is another project we're actively using, and figuring out where we move forward from there. So I was really kind of inspired by this aspect of the mission, which is to really enable the software development teams to deliver code better and faster. That's, when I think about the hope for the foundation, it's that we can build an organization, a community here that's got tools, technology, it has processes, it has techniques, and it has people. Because many of these things are well beyond what a tool can do. As we look through our developer productivity teams, we see that the tools are really, we're automating certain workflows or automating tasks, we're taking things out, but these are all, how do we find ways to help enabling developers to be more productive? So I did not know this was a build. I think that's it. And of course, I'm going to step down for a second. One of the things, so what do we care about from a software perspective? Secure and trustworthy. If we can't trust the bits that we've got out there, then basically everything else stops. So we need to make sure we understand what is the provenance of our code, where's it going, what machines is it going onto, how do I control that, how do I manage that in an effective way? Increase the interoperability between the tools that we have. We're going to continue to write custom tools that are very specific to the kinds of work our business does. But over time, I wish more and more of those were patterns that the organization could build and lead within the broader community. Right now, we've got a lot of times where we're telling systems what to do very, very specifically. And we've started to explore the idea of moving towards more and more declarative pipelines, more of a manifest-oriented approach. We see this was mentioned earlier today. We see this within the Kubernetes community. Please tell me what the state of the world should look like. And once it looks like that, then the system can reason about how can it get there in the best manner. Working on all substrates. You know, I think we should, if we look at the different kinds of companies that are starting to join the foundation, and it's going to grow even more so, there's different forms of regulation that companies are going to be operating under. And I think that even if you look at specifically within data location, GDPR type regulations that we have here in Europe, and those types of regulations are moving to other countries. There's more and more places where regulation impacts even the developer activities and workflows. Even more so, some people think it just happens within the production system must do this. You need to make sure you've got the right kind of controls in place, and I do think there's a framework here that we can continue to look at. Being able to scale up and down. I loved seeing like the Jenkins X team where they were able to build and deploy something in a matter of just a few minutes, to figuring out how we have these systems build and scale towards the other direction as well. We're always going to optimize, but I think as these systems get deployed at larger and larger activities, what you end up with is finding ways to do that automation in a repeatable, structured manner. And then I think one of the things that we've recently gotten a handle on understanding is the need of transparency and visibility, observability in your CI system at scale. So we often think about the developer-centric view, but as you think about larger and larger teams of devs, what you've got then is how is this code transforming? Where are there things stuck in pipelines? What is the latency and the overall speed across the entire system? So that visibility and kind of almost reporting or management of the overall deployment management system becomes increasingly impactful as you scale to hundreds or thousands of developers. So one of the things that excites us about as kind of an end user in this community, because we don't sell our underlying developer kind of software. We're really here because we want to be part of the community here that can move the practice forward and move that practice forward in software integration, and the practices that we develop. We hope to be a member with you all to help build forums of experience so people can share what they're doing and find ways to improve the practices around this. Whoops, sorry, one last thing. So I wanted to announce something. I was catching up with Michael Windsor earlier today from Google, and we were talking about the people who lead or the developer productivity teams. And so we'd like to announce a meeting of folks in those organizations in New York. And if you're interested, and if that's a role that you have, please come talk to me or Michael. Please stand up, Michael. And we want to talk about organizing that. We think it'd be really good to get a community like that together so we can find out more about what each other does, how we lead things, what tools we use, but really how do we manage and grow that practice within developer productivity. So with that, I'd like to say thank you and appreciate the time, and I'm looking forward to really contributing more to the community. We have some time for questions, I think. Yes?
So you mentioned that you have several dozen CI/CD systems in use right now. Yeah. And is the goal to increase that number? Or is that okay? Like,
what's the goal? So to repeat the question, we have more than 20 CI systems, and what's the goal? The goal is to bring that number down. Note that some of these came through acquisitions. Some of these came because the product was very different than what we currently have. We're now increasingly happy with our main systems, and we've been, over the last year, onboarding more and more to the main system. And that number's gone down. It will continue to go down. The question is, what is the main system, and what do we call that? So the main system, something called SFCI, Salesforce Continuous Integration. It is based upon a Jenkins underlying engine with a lot of customization, plugins, and automation and things around that. Yeah, that's kind of at a high level. Other questions? Oh yeah, Michael.
You have 20 CI systems, right? You can narrow that down to a smaller number. But what is, like, when you think about what you're trying to get to, right? Why do you have 20 systems? You have 20 different projects, different things like, and do all projects need the same solution?
So we have 20 systems. Just repeat the question. We have 20 systems, and like, what do they need? And is it really, are they different enough that we'd have a goal to get it down to one? It's not a goal to get it down to one. It's a goal to get it down to a reasonable covering set where they're able to get their needs met in a pretty optimal way. And so we're really not trying to force fit people into things. We have a great belief in kind of freedom and choice and optimization. Each one of these is a significant business that it's supporting. We want to make sure we support the growth and health of that business. And so part of what we've been doing is understanding what those needs are and figuring out where we can start to accommodate them in that kind of way. It's very important for us that we don't declare a lot of things to people and say, you must use this. That's just, we find that is not a good mindset to come to this kind of work with. We're here to help, to serve, to foster, to provide some insights and some technology to help move things forward. Thanks. Is there another question? I'm sorry. We are not entirely Kubernetes. I wish we were, most likely. But no, we have a complex set of workloads that range from kind of all the substrates you'd expect, from bare metal to VM to containers. So in that space, we've got to figure out how do we manage those artifacts, how do we create and deploy those against a wide set of data centers. And some of that software is very new, kind of serverless oriented. Some of that software is more database oriented. One of the main things we do is we've got lots of very centralized database technology. We've got to make sure we cover that whole range of footprints and application workloads. A great question. The question was around Spinnaker. How we're using that. So we're relatively early in our Spinnaker journey. So we have a subset of teams that are using that more intensively. Other ones are still using kind of our pre-existing deployment technology that I didn't really highlight here, but there's a pre-existing deployment technology that does scanning, secure, and deploys and orchestrates that deployment across many, many data centers. Cool. Yes?
Internal interest groups or foster community? I'm assuming there's some resourcing needed between the main team and other independent teams.
Yeah, so how do we build community within kind of the area about productivity? We've got a lot of internal boards and internal messaging that we have. A few of the teams still have groups that are kind of focused around their specific needs. So we team up significantly with them around partnering, and occasionally people go, oh, I would like to join your team, and so that happens non-trivially. And so we try to make sure we support all those teams with the best applications and tech we can. Yep.
So have you done an evaluation for Spinnaker versus Jenkins X life cycle of the continuous delivery pipeline? Since do you believe that you can use Jenkins X for managing life cycle of your environments together with Spinnaker in other workflows? Or you prefer one or the other? What's your opinion?
Okay. The question was about the comparison between Jenkins X and Spinnaker, and do we see those both being able to work well for us? Right now, we are just using Jenkins, and we're using it in a CI manner. We have not yet gotten into Jenkins X. I think we've had it in the lab, but we haven't yet deployed that. We hope to learn more and more about what it can do. And thanks. Other questions? Yes. I'm sorry? What do I want? So why the CF Foundation, and what do we hope to get out of it? A couple of things. One, we believe this is a kind of a critical set of processes and activities that we deeply care about. We do it every day. We're too excited that for a community to form around these practices, around the techniques, as much as around the tools. I'm very happy that the tools now have a place where they can comfortably live, because the journey that people in CI/CD are on is very different, I think, than the journey if you look at the broader rest of the conference, the CNCF. I mean, these are more leading edge, more greenfield, more very forward-leaning. I think we in this community, I hope we can foster a support across the entire space of kind of software development and deployment, even for people that are on relatively waterfall. They want to, many of those companies want to get on a CI. So how do we help that process? How do we help people get better at CI? Because once they're better at CI, they will start to get better and better at deployment and release. So those are some of our motivations. And I think we're just kind of excited to be finding other like-minded people who are trying to solve and operate on similar problems. We're absolutely using Kubernetes, but again, we have a very large scale of applications, and not all of them are on Kubernetes right now. I can't really talk about where we are on that side. I'm really not part of those application teams. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. With that, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oops.